Let's visit Chesterton's fence theory and compare it to something from dog culture. I did a video on this before. I'll put that in the description if you'd like to have a quick lesson on Chesterton's fence. Chesterton's fence theory says that a principle is in place because of a good reason, most likely, and we shouldn't just blindly change it. Let me just read off of this. It's a principle that reminds us to look before we leap, to understand before we act. It's a cautionary reminder to understand why something is the way it is before meddling in change. This can be very dangerous when we go and change something just because we think it's going to be better for one or two reasons. And downstream, it can cause very terrible effects. So part of the Chesterton's fence theory, it states that we shouldn't just change the way things used to be because, we're pushing towards something that could be very dangerous potentially. And this is how it used to be if you wanted to own a dog. The dog's on the porch, tied to a rope, and that's totally fine. Nobody's going to go on Facebook and say you're a dog abuser for not putting him in the bed. If the wind blows and the rain comes down, the dog is going to be out here and he's going to be fine. It's not going to be a big deal. And if you don't own a house or a property like this that's sufficient for a dog, if you don't know how to use a broom and clean up after your dog, if you live in a little apartment, then you probably just aren't going to get a dog. That's a norm that used to exist. If you live in a tiny little apartment, you don't need a bunch of dogs. That was the norm. And this would be the norm, and if you didn't have this for your dog, then you didn't get a dog. You didn't have a bunch of kennels in the backyard, you didn't have a house full of several barking dogs. And so this is a norm, this is a standard that we just decided we need to change so we can stuff more dogs up inside of more houses. And so what are the downstream effects of just kicking that norm to the curb? Well, one of the things is pet sitting. So now that you have a dog that can't just sit out on the porch and keep its barking mouth shut and just not bother the neighbors, now you need to have a pet sitter. So here's a little look at some pet sitting statistics. 9.5 billion is spent on dog boarding, 228 a year on boarding kennels. Look at all these numbers. 123.6 billion on their pets. And this is just registered pet care businesses. This isn't the little dog sitters that are on the community pages that come over and take care of people's dogs. So all of this expenditure is the result of putting these dogs up in houses and apartments. All of this expense. So think about that. You got a dog that lives in your house, but you need to spend all this money on pet sitting and everything else. Not to mention all of the other cleaning products and everything. But what if this was your human friend, for example, and your human friend was going to live with you for free? Pay absolutely nothing, just like a dog. Okay, that's kind of a freeloader, but some people might let their friend live with them for free. But imagine you need to go to work or you want to go on vacation, and now your friend requires you to buy them a companion to come to your home and pamper them. Do you realize just what a bunch of freeloaders these dogs are? Like, the dog lives in your house for free. It can't do any cleaning. And if you leave, you have to hire somebody to take care of the dog. But anyways, this is just creating all of this market for all of these crazy expenditures that you need to do when you're gone. So now let's look a little farther downstream to see what the effects are of kicking that thing that we talked about earlier to the curb. So dog sitters are constantly being mauled more and more. The rate goes up every year. One of the most famous ones is Jacqueline Durand. She nearly died. She nearly lost all of her blood. Mauled nearly to death by dogs. So, like the Chesterton fence theory, when we take a norm that is in society for a reason, dogs are dangerous and stinky and smelly and they cost a lot, and they're not the perfect buddy you think they are. So shoving them up in houses where they don't belong, taking them off the front porch, like a dog belongs on the front porch with the freaking leash in a doghouse. It doesn't belong up on your couch or in your bed or in the bathroom chewing the face off of your dog sitter either. So we take that norm, we throw it out the window, and the results are death, death, death. And a lot of these sitters are female. So where are the feminists? Where are the social movements that say they're going to stand up for women? Like this one, a mother and son mauled by 4 pit bulls. They were doggy sitting. Wow, people. And here's another quick look at some people that get mauled by dogs. These are animal shelter workers. Now, this isn't the same as the downstream effect of the in home dog babysitting, but this is along the same line. These people that work in shelters, well, the dogs are there in the shelter because people that got a bunch of dogs in their apartment or small homes realized that they couldn't take care of them, and so they end up in the shelter. Because because a lot of people have dogs in their home and realize it doesn't work. And they don't have a big yard or a giant front porch to go tie the dog up. Like say they have family and friends over, or say that they have, well, their friend's dog come over. They can't take those dogs outside and tie them up away from each other. So they end up fighting and biting and getting kicked to the curb, and they end up in the shelter. And then guess what? They freaking attack, kill, and maul shelter workers. So it's another downstream effect of removing this norm that we had of dogs just belonging outside. It used to be a dog was supposed to protect your house. You tie it up outside on a chain, and the thing has enough discipline to keep its mouth shut unless there's a real issue. The dog has one bowl of food that's going to last it a couple days. That used to be a norm. We've kicked that norm to the curb, and this is the price that we pay downstream in society. And another norm about the narrative of why people owned dogs was because, well, the dog is going to look after my house while I'm gone. If somebody comes over, it's going to bark and scare away the bad guy. But first off, dogs really aren't that good at doing that. And second off, if that's true, if dogs are so good at protecting your property, why do we have to constantly hire dog sitters? Billions in dollars spent every year on it. So that's just another example of the Chesterton fence theory and how it applies to dog culture. Do not remove a fence until you know why it was put up in the first place. Yeah. Do not go and shove dogs in houses until you realize that, there's a reason that dogs are not up in people's houses. And all you got to do is wait a few years and look downstream and see what the results are. And the results are not good.